Hello and welcome to Forbidden Planet TV, and on today's episode we are joined by the fantastic A.Y. Chao to talk about Shanghai Immortal, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for joining us today. So what can you tell us without too many spoilers? I know obviously it's been out for a little while now, about Shanghai Immortal.
First of all, thank you for having me. This is really great. Wow, what's it about? It's about a lot of things. And I'm so bad at pitching. This is so bad. Let's see. It is about a half-hulijing, which is a fox spirit, vampire, half-vampire, outcast. She's a noble outcast. She lives in hell. She's the ward to King of Hell. And she basically is out for vengeance against her elders who tormented her as a child. But then she has to babysit a mortal who is in hell trying to set up the central bank of hell, as you do. And yeah, so shenanigans ensue because she has to keep other people from eating him because he smells good. You know, demons and deities in this world live on Yangqi, and so they think he's a tasty snack. She also thinks he's a tasty snack, but she's not allowed to eat him either. And she also is trying to wreak revenge on these people who tormented her as a child. So it's all a little messy. And I think the whole book is, you know, she's a messy character. She's chaotic, angry, profane, vulgar. Yeah. So it's a bit of a romp. It's a story about identity and found family, mixed up with quite a lot of references to farts and boobs and butts.
There's a lot of tata.
There's a lot of tatas.
There's a lot of tatas.
There's a lot of tatas. PSA, check your tatas. You know, it's always very good to check them for like lumps. Very good.
So what made you kind of pick the 1930s kind of time period? What about that particularly appealed?
There's multiple things. So I really like the fact that I grew up in Canada, so my home background is very dual. I've got like sort of Western sensibilities, but I also have my Chinese heritage from my family. And Shanghai, from my perspective, really spoke to me because I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, you know, it's a mix of all these Western kind of cultural references, like movies and music and food. Got electricity and Packards and all those kind of like elements of luxury and glamour, but also there's like the Chinese-ness of it as well, that it is a Chinese city, and there's also it was a treaty port during the time in 1930s from the Opium Wars, so it had been a treaty port for a very long time, and so it had multiple concessions that carved the city into different territories that were run by different countries. So you had the French concession, the American concession, and also, like, because of that, there was, clearly it was a colonial time, there was a lot of racism towards the Chinese, and when I wrote this was during the pandemic when there was a real rise to anti-Asian sentiment because of COVID. And so that also spoke to me, so that was why I chose that particular time.
Mm-hmm. And you do get that kind of that real kind of, I suppose, melting pot of different nationalities comes through, and even the mention of like the Tootsie Rolls and all the kind of the different snacks from different places.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Shanghai at the time, in the 30s, it was like one of the top 3 places in the world for, you know, the movers and the shakers to go. So you had Paris, there was New York, and there was Shanghai. Like, it was a really exciting place to be, and I mean, Hemingway went there, Einstein was there, like, people wrote, I think, anyway, lots of film directors went over there, Marlene Dietrich. Like, it was just kind of like a, oh yeah, we'll see you over there, we'll see you in Shanghai, you know, hop on the boat, everybody goes. So it was a really interesting, glamorous place.
Yeah, it almost kind of like, just reading it was making me kind of think a little bit kind of Gatsby-esque, you know, with the whole kind of, especially obviously there's so many mentions of kind of the outfits and the fashions in the book, and obviously with one of the characters, Gigi and Lady Jing, so doing the kind of the shopping element and almost the pretty woman, but 1930s Shanghai kind of thing.
Getting dressed up and then doing their hair with the Marcel waves. You know, it's a very specific aesthetic. And, you know, at the time, like, also the 30s, especially 1935 when it's set, it really is the end of that era. And, you know, like, in Paris as well, during that time, there's this kind of feeling of, I don't know, it's like hedonism, excess. And I don't know if it's because they subconsciously can see the end of it, or because they're like, I don't know, why not? Like, I don't know if it was just the zeitgeist. So, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It almost kind of, I suppose there's an interesting like juxtaposition between kind of, I suppose, the history and tradition element, and then you have this kind of, I suppose, new wave of hedonism and
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, the clash as well.
Yeah.
Which is something that, like, if you're a diaspora, and, like, I grew up, I'm never sure whether I'm first generation or second generation, because my parents moved over for school, and I was born in Canada, so whatever that is. You know, there's always that clash, you know, the older generation and their views and their perspectives and what they were brought up with versus the new generation and, you know, the modernity of that and what sort of ideologies and attitudes that you embrace as you grow up. And it's never going to be the same. Like, I even see that. I've got an 11-year-old, and there's certain things that, you know, she is very comfortable with and she thinks is normal, which I need to be like, okay, right, let's be cool about it. Like, okay, let's, you know, open mind. So, yeah.
And the, I suppose the idea you touched on before about kind of belonging, so the fact that people seem to be able to kind of come and go, that there's no mention kind of passports or visas, or, you know, there's almost like a freedom to kind of both versions of Shanghai that really kind of speaks to kind of the found family elements and
in Immortal Shanghai, so hell version of Shanghai, mortals can't really come in, but, you know, the immortals, they can travel where they like for the most part. There's not really, I mean, there are obstacles to completely free movement, but I mean, in real world Shanghai, Shanghai was one of the very few places where they didn't require a visa. You didn't have to show that you had X amount of money. You could just turn up, which is why they had so many White Russian refugees and Jewish refugees, because they could come over from Europe where they were being persecuted and find safe haven in Shanghai at that time. I mean, it was short-lived because of the Japanese bombings, but, you know, for a time there, it was really a haven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we touched on before about the kind of the scenes of fashion and the kind of hedonism, but also obviously there's lots of mention of food as well, and very much the idea of like the love language of food and kind of cooking and preparing for people. Was that kind of an important thing for you, and is that your love language?
No, I'm too lazy. Like, sometimes if I get the yen, I will cook or bake, but I haven't done it in a long time. It's lost the love of it. But yeah, in this story, definitely, it explores different kinds of love language. So not just the food, but also, you know, how people express themselves. And it is like, food is one of the service languages. Like, you know, you're providing, you're doing something for someone, and that's very Chinese. And I think there's lots of cultures that speak through food in that way. But in Chinese culture specifically, like, you have very, not very effusive kind of declarations. Like, it isn't like, you wouldn't have, like, my dad would never go, "Oh, I love you so much, you are like such a wonderful girl, I'm so proud of you, blah blah." Like, maybe I might get a "I'm very proud of you." Do you know what I mean? And it isn't that he doesn't love me, and it isn't that he doesn't think those things. It's that the love language is not expressed that way. It's expressed in doing things for you, and often it's silence, you know. So yeah, but like here in the book, I really love all those foods, and I really wanted to bring them into the story, because it's like It is. It's a touchstone. It's like, oh, you know, you share food,
Mm.
you share connection, you make food for someone. That's also a deeper connection. So, yeah, I wanted to explore that in there.
So, which other characters did you particularly enjoy writing?
Oh, my two favorites were Lady Gigi, because she is just like Jing. She says what she wants, but unlike Jing, she has a lot of confidence, and she knows her own worth, which I thought was really fun to write. And Lord Black is another one of my favorites. He's just so, like, it's sort of, he is that enigmatic, magical, you know, old man trope, but he's just so fun with it. He's like, no, I'm going to give you riddles, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be so zen myself, but I'm going to drive you insane. So yeah, I thought he was very fun. His scene with Lady Jing in the cavern is just, it's so fun. She's just getting so riled up. It's really amusing.
And who, as well, I always like to ask this, who would you like to play them if you had a film of Shanghai
Oh my
Immortal?
god. I don't know Chinese actors well enough. I mean, I would love Wang Hedi to be in there. I really don't care who he is. And Michelle Yeoh. Wang Hedi from Love Between Fairy and Devil. And then Michelle Yeoh. I mean, whoever she wants to play. If she wants to play Lord Black, sure, go ahead.
Oh my god.
You know, wouldn't she be? Oh, she'd be so amazing. But yeah, I don't know. Like, so many options. And like that imperious... I want to see, there's a movie coming out called, oh, my brain. It's coming out on July 8th. Stephanie Hsu is in it. Sabrina Wong. Joyride? No, Joyce. And it's like they go to China to find one of the girls' birth mother. But it goes all wrong. It goes very wrong. It's kind of like The Hangover, but, you know, in China.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stephanie Hsu would be great. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Because it does have a very kind of visual, when you're reading it, like things just kind of really come to life. So yeah, I could definitely imagine it being like a film, or even like a graphic novel or something.
Oh, I'd love a graphic novel. That would be amazing. So much fun.
Yes, yeah. We've had, just thinking like the Lu did a range of graphic novels based on different kind of Chinese folklore and fairy tales.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely beautiful. So that kind of thing could definitely work. So yeah, coming up to the end of the interview, so just to touch on obviously the beautiful cover as well. So I'm sure you're obviously very happy. Did you have kind of much say in the direction of the cover?
I had a great team. So Natalie Chen was the cover designer, and she pulled all the elements together, and working with Molly, my editor, as well. They were really great because I was involved in it, and I got to shoot off loads of ideas, and we played with a lot of different ideas. So we played with having someone in the center.
Yes.
And it just kind of, it didn't feel right, and so then we were like, oh, what about having like a river in the middle? And Natalie came up with the upside down Shanghai, which I love. I think it's such a great element. And then I was like, what about having, you know, turquoise hills in the top, like the home of the half-hulijing?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then when we sent it to Wei Tong Mai, who is the illustrator, and she just has this beautiful, very ethereal, magical kind of way to her illustrations, and it just, yeah, I'm so happy. Like, it's dream come true.
It is beautiful, and kind of, I suppose anything with like a golden kind of dragon is going to be like, it's going to
be
good. And just to finish, what can you tell us about the next in this series? Because it's going to be a trilogy.
It is a trilogy. So the next in the series, we're going to meet vampires.
Yes.
And we're going to Paris.
Oh my god, vampires in Paris.
Vampires in Paris.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's like, at the moment there's a visiting deity from another pantheon. You know, we have the International Convention of Immortals or something. I can't remember what I called it. Yes, and so that comes into play, and we have a visiting dignitary who gets himself into a spot of bother with the half-hulijing, and Lady Jing then has to wade in, and instead of other people sorting out her shit, she now has to sort out other people's shit, which is like such it's like the mother in me going, haha, wait till, like, child, you are like tormenting me, but oh my god, wait until you have children. You will also be tormented, and then you will be like, oh my god, why was I such a brat?
And just quickly on vampires, because obviously you mentioned vampires, I think a lot of us kind of grew up reading the Anne Rice and various other kind of classic vampire books. So who is your favourite vampire from film, TV and books? Like, who is your like pinnacle vampire?
Okay, you'd have to ask for different ages. So when I was younger, actually it wasn't Lestat, it was the guy Brad Pitt played. What was his name?
Oh, yes, yeah. Tom Cruise I don't think was a good...
No, he was like, the energy was there, but, you know, Lestat was meant to be really tall and blonde, and he's not tall or blonde. And he would not look, blonde doesn't suit him. But yeah, so younger, that was him, and then I had my whole period as a, you know, Edward Cullen. Oh yes, I'd be like, oh, to my husband, how come you can't be more like Edward Cullen? And he'd just be like, what is wrong with you? But right now, my favorite vampires have got to be the ones from What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh my god, yes.
Bumbling and sort of like...
Too good.
Yeah, like good. Just messy and vulnerable. I just love them, yeah, so I really like those ones too. Yeah.
Very, very good choice. Very good choice. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and for obviously signing all these lovely copies. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, hopefully see you again soon.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, if you want to check out the links on our website, there will be some signed copies available to order now. So see everyone soon. Bye.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.